My grandmother was lying in a hospice bed, tubes in her arm, barely able to sit up, and she used what little strength she had left to make one phone call. Not to my parents, not to my sister, to her lawyer. And that one call from a dying woman in a hospital gown changed everything. But let me back up, because before I tell you what my grandmother did, you need to understand what my parents did first. For 26 years, I was the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who never asked for anything, the one who showed up every single time. And for 26 years, my parents took that and handed everything to my sister: opportunities, attention, money, and eventually, the inheritance my grandmother had specifically set aside for me. The day I found out, I did not cry. I did not scream. I sat in my car in a parking lot and I called my grandmother. She picked up on the second ring. I told her everything. She was quiet for a long time, and then she said, "Baby, I already know, and I already handled it. Stay with me, because what that woman did from a hospice bed with one phone call is something I will spend the rest of my life being grateful for." Before I take you back to the beginning, if this story hits close to home, take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with it. Drop your location and your local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're listening from. Let's begin. My name is Jade. I am the oldest of two girls. My sister, Brianna, is 3 years younger than me. We grew up in a mid-sized town in Ohio. Nothing remarkable about it. Quiet streets, Friday night football, a Walmart 20 minutes away. My parents, Robert and Diane, were not bad people. I want to be clear about that from the start. They were not cruel. They were not abusive. They were just uneven. And in a family, uneven is its own kind of damage. My father worked in construction management. My mother worked part-time at a dental office and ran the house the rest of the time. We were comfortable, not wealthy, comfortable. And from as early as I can remember, the way comfort was distributed in our house was not equal. Brianna was the baby. Bright smile, easy laugh, the kind of kid that strangers stopped to compliment in grocery stores. And my parents loved her in a way that was visible, loud. You could see it in the room. They loved me too, I believe that, but their love for me was the quiet kind, the assumed kind, the kind that does not feel like it needs to be demonstrated because surely she knows. Surely Jade knows. Jade always handles it. And so I did. From the time I was 9 years old, I was the one who remembered permission slips, who helped Brianna with her homework, who noticed when the laundry needed doing and did it without being asked, who sat with my mother when she had one of her bad headaches and made sure Brianna ate dinner. Not because anyone asked me to, but because I looked around and saw what needed doing, and I did it. That was my role, the responsible one. And roles in families, once they are assigned, are almost impossible to put down. My grandmother's name was Ruth. Ruth Eleanor Campbell. She was my mother's mother, 79 years old, 5'2", silver hair she kept in a bun so neat it looked painted on. She had a house on the edge of town, a real house, the kind with a porch that wrapped all the way around, a garden she tended herself until her knees would not let her anymore, and a kitchen that always smelled like something was either just finished baking or about to go in. Grandma Ruth was the kind of woman who did not say much, but when she spoke, you listened, not because she was loud, because she was always right. She watched our family with quiet, careful eyes. She saw the dynamic between me and Brianna. She saw the way my parents lit up differently in each of our presents. She never said anything about it directly, but she showed me in the way she loved me. Every summer, I spent 2 weeks at her house alone. Just me, not Brianna, just me. We would sit on that porch in the evenings with sweet tea, and she would ask me questions. Not kid questions, real questions. What do you want your life to look like, Jade? What are you most proud of this year? What is one thing you wish people understood about you? She saw me, fully, clearly, without condition. And when I was 16, she sat me down at her kitchen table and told me something I have never forgotten. "Jade, I have set aside money for you, for when you are ready to use it, for school, for a home, for whatever you need to build your life. It is yours. It has always been yours." I asked her why she was telling me. She looked at me over her sweet tea and said, "Because you should know that someone in this family is paying attention." I cried that night in her spare bedroom, not from sadness, from the relief of being seen. I graduated high school with a 3.8 GPA, got into Ohio State on a partial scholarship. My parents came to the graduation, took photos. My mother cried. My father shook my hand and said, "We always knew you would," which sounds like a compliment, but what it really meant was, "We never worried about you," which is a different thing entirely. I worked through college, 20 hours a week at the campus library, summers waitressing back home. I did not ask my parents for money because I knew the conversation would be complicated. I knew what Grandma Ruth had set aside, and I knew it was there for when I truly needed it. I graduated in 4 years, business administration, moved to Columbus, got an entry-level position at a logistics company, small apartment, used furniture, a life I was building slowly and deliberately. Brianna, meanwhile, had a different trajectory. She graduated high school 2 years after me, decided college was not for her, which is fine, that is her choice, but what followed that choice was a pattern I had watched my whole life, just scaled up. Every time Brianna hit a wall, my parents were there with a ladder. She needed a phone upgrade, they bought it. She totaled her first car at 19, a car they had bought her, that, I want to be clear, no one bought me. They replaced it within 3 weeks. She moved into an apartment and struggled with rent. They covered 2 months without blinking. I watched all of this from Columbus, said nothing, kept building, kept showing up at holidays, kept being Jade. Dependable, undemanding, fine. And then Grandma Ruth got sick. It was pancreatic cancer, stage 3, diagnosed on a Tuesday in February. My mother called me that evening. Her voice was flat in the way voices go flat when a person is holding something too heavy to carry with any expression. "Mom has cancer, Jade. It is serious." I drove home that weekend. Grandma Ruth was sitting in her living room in her recliner. Thinner than I remembered, but her eyes were the same, sharp, warm, fully present. She waved off my concern before I could even express it. "Sit down, baby. I made sweet tea." We sat on her porch that evening like we always had, and she told me the prognosis, 6 to 12 months, possibly less. I held her hand and did not say anything for a while. Then she squeezed my fingers and said, "I've had a good life, Jade. A full one. I'm not afraid, but I need to know that you are going to be okay. Are you going to be okay?" I told her yes, and in that moment, I meant it. I had no idea what was coming. Grandma Ruth declined faster than the doctors expected. By May, she had moved into a hospice facility 40 minutes from my parents' house. I drove home every other weekend, sat with her, brought her sweet tea in a thermos because the hospice tea was terrible, and she said so plainly. On one of those visits, a Saturday in June, I stopped at my parents' house first. My mother was in the kitchen. My father was in the garage. Brianna was at the kitchen table on her phone. Normal Saturday, except there was a set of car keys on the counter. Brand new key fob, the kind with the rounded edges and the little logo. I picked them up without thinking. "Whose are these?" Brianna looked up from her phone with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "Mine. Mom and Dad got me a new car." I set the keys down. "Oh, nice." And I left it there, because something in the room felt like a held breath, like everyone was waiting to see if I would say something. I did not. I drove to the hospice, sat with Grandma Ruth for 3 hours. She slept most of the time. I held her hand and watched her breathe. On the drive home, I called my old friend Candace. She had grown up 2 streets over from us. Her mother and my mother had been friends for 30 years. I was not calling for information. I just needed to talk. But 3 minutes into the conversation, Candace said something that stopped me cold. "Hey, I heard about Brianna's car. I saw your mom posting about it. That was sweet of your grandma to help out like that." I pulled over. "What did you say?" "The car. Your mom posted about it. Said your grandmother wanted to do something special for Brianna before—" She trailed off. The silence lasted about 4 seconds. "Candace, what exactly did my mother post?" She read it to me, word for word. A Facebook post. Photo of Brianna standing in front of a brand new white Honda CR-V. Caption reading, "So grateful for family. Grandma Ruth wanted to bless our baby girl one last time. Love wins." 47 likes. Heart emojis from aunts and cousins. Comments saying how beautiful, how generous, how wonderful. I sat in my car on the side of that road for a long time. The money my grandmother had set aside, the money she had told me about when I was 16, the money she had said was mine, had been used without a conversation, without a phone call, without so much as a text, to buy my sister a car, and my mother had posted it on Facebook like it was a blessing. I did not call my mother that night. I needed to be certain before I said a single word. The next morning, I called my grandmother's lawyer. His name was Gerald Watkins. He had handled my grandmother's affairs for over 20 years. I introduced myself and asked one question. Was money moved from my grandmother's account recently? Money that was designated for me? He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Miss Campbell, I think it would be best if you came in." I drove to his office that Monday, sat across from a man in a brown suit behind a desk covered in folders. He folded his hands and told me what had happened. 6 weeks earlier, my parents had gone to my grandmother at the hospice and told her that Brianna was in a difficult situation, that she needed reliable transportation, that it would mean so much coming from her. My grandmother, who was exhausted, medicated, and in the final chapter of her life, had agreed, or at least had not said no clearly enough to stop them. $22,000 moved from the account designated for me to pay for a Honda CR-V for my sister. I sat in that office and looked at the number on the paper Gerald slid across the desk. $22,000. 2 years of my college savings topped up from that account. The down payment I had been planning for a house. Gone. With my grandmother's signature on the paperwork. A signature she had given from a hospice bed while she was dying. I drove home, went inside, sat on my couch, and then I picked up the phone and called my mother. She answered on the second ring. Cheerful. Normal. "Jade, how are you, honey?" "Mom," I kept my voice completely level, "I need you to tell me about the money from Grandma Ruth's account." Silence. 3 full seconds. "What do you mean?" "I mean the $22,000 that was designated for me, that you used to buy Brianna a car." Another silence. Then, "Jade, your grandmother wanted to do this. She said so herself." "She was in a hospice bed, Mom. She was still of sound mind. She was medicated and exhausted, and you went to her and asked her for my money." My mother's voice shifted, the cheerful completely gone. "It was her money, Jade. She could do what she wanted with it. She had already designated it for me. You knew that. Brianna needed a car. I needed that money, Mom. You are fine, Jade. You have always been fine. You have a job. You are responsible. Brianna needed help." And there it was. The thing that had been true my entire life said out loud in one sentence. You are fine. You have always been fine. You do not need anything. So we gave it to someone who made more noise. I did not respond. I ended the call. And then I did something I had not done in years. I called my grandmother. She picked up on the second ring. Her voice was thin, tired, but present. "Jade?" "Hey, Grandma." I tried to keep my voice steady. I did not manage it entirely. "Baby, what is wrong?" And I told her. Everything. The Facebook post, the call to Gerald, the $22,000, the conversation with my mother. I did not dramatize it. I just laid it out flat, the way she had always taught me to. She was quiet for a long time after I finished. So quiet, I checked the phone to make sure the call had not dropped. "Grandma?" "I am here." Her voice was different now. Not thin. Steady. "Jade, I want you to listen to me carefully." "I am listening." "I did not give them permission to use your money. I signed a paper your father put in front of me and told me was for something else. I was not fully present that day." "I know, baby. I know it was not you." "No." Her voice was firm. "You do not understand what I am saying. I already called Gerald this morning." I stopped breathing for a second. "You called him?" "First thing." A pause. "I had him come to the hospice yesterday evening. We made changes, Jade. Real ones. Legal ones." "Grandma, I am not finished." I closed my mouth. "I have spent 79 years watching people take advantage of quiet, of dependable, of fine." Her voice caught slightly. "I will not spend whatever time I have left watching someone do it to you." "What did you do?" I whispered. "Gerald will call you Thursday. He will explain everything. But what I need you to know right now," her voice softened, "is that I see you, Jade. I have always seen you, and I am so sorry it took this for me to fight louder." I sat on my kitchen floor, back against the cabinet, hand pressed to my mouth. "You do not have to be sorry." "I know I do not have to be. I am anyway." We stayed on the phone for another 20 minutes. She told me about the cardinals coming to her window every morning, about how the night nurse reminded her of her college roommate, about how the sweet tea I brought was the best thing about her Tuesdays. Normal things. Her things. Before we hung up, she said, "Come see me this weekend. I will be there Saturday morning. Bring the good tea. Always." That was the last real conversation we ever had. Gerald Watkins called me at 9:47 a.m. on Thursday. I had barely slept 2 nights. I answered before the second ring. He was calm and methodical, the way lawyers are when they are delivering news they know will land hard. He explained what my grandmother had done. In that hospice room, with whatever energy she had left, she had made 3 changes. The first, she had formally documented that the $22,000 used for Brianna's car had been taken without her informed consent. She had submitted a signed affidavit to that effect. Gerald said it was unlikely my parents would face legal consequences, but it meant the record existed. It meant the truth existed, on paper, permanently. The second, she had restructured her remaining estate, her house. The porch-wrapped house with the garden and the kitchen that always smelled like something baking was left to me, solely in my name, not to be shared, not to be divided. Mine. The third, she had liquidated a separate savings account I had not known existed, $41,000, set aside over decades, small amounts, consistent, deliberate, the way Grandma Ruth did everything, left entirely to me, with a note attached to the documents. Gerald cleared his throat and read it. "Jade, you have never asked for anything. That is your greatest strength, and the thing that has cost you the most. Consider this me finally making it even. Build something beautiful. You already know how. All my love, Grandma Ruth." I did not speak for almost a full minute. Gerald waited. "Are you all right, Miss Campbell?" "Yes," I said, and for the first time in a long time, I completely meant it. My parents found out the following week. Gerald had sent formal notification as required. My mother called me 7 times in 1 hour. I watched every call come in from my couch. I answered the 8th. Her voice was not angry. It was something worse than angry. It was the voice of someone who had been caught and was trying to reframe it before you could name it. Jade, your grandmother was not well when she made these decisions. We should talk about this as a family. She was well enough to call her lawyer, I say. She was well enough to submit an affidavit. She was well enough to write me a note. We did not mean for it to go this far. You went to a dying woman and had her sign over money that was mine. Not loud, not sharp, just true. We thought she would want to help Brianna. Then you should have asked Brianna's grandmother for Brianna's money. Silence. I am not going to fight about this, Mom. I am not going to negotiate. What happened is documented. What Grandma chose to do in response is also documented. I hope at some point you understand why this hurt, but I am not going to wait around for that. I ended the call. My father called once, left a voicemail that was 4 minutes of quiet justifications and half-formed apologies. I listened to it once, and then I put my phone down and made dinner. Brianna texted 3 days later. One message. I did not know where the money came from. I just want you to know that. I believed her. Brianna was not malicious. She was just someone who had been handed things her whole life and had never learned to ask where they came from. I texted back, I believe you. Take care of yourself, Bri. And I left it there. I drove to the hospice that Saturday. Thermos of sweet tea in the passenger seat. Grandma Ruth was smaller than she had been 2 weeks before, the kind of smaller that happens fast at the end. She was awake when I came in, eyes open, watching the window. 3 cardinals on the feeder outside. She turned when she heard me come in, and her face did the thing it had always done when she saw me, just settled, like something that had been slightly tense finally let go. You brought the tea. Always. I poured her a small cup. She held it in both hands. We watched the cardinals for a while without talking. Then she said, Gerald told me the notifications went out. Yes. Your mother called you? Yes. And I said what needed saying, and then I let it go. She nodded slowly. Good girl. A pause. Are you angry with me? She asked. I looked at her. For what? For not fighting sooner? For signing that paper? For letting them... No, I took her hand. Not even a little. She looked at me for a long moment. You are the best of all of us, Jade. I learned from you. She smiled at that, small and tired and real. We sat together for 4 hours that afternoon. She slept for some of it. I sat in the chair beside her bed and read and let her sleep. When I got up to leave, she was awake again. I kissed her forehead. I will come back next weekend. She nodded. Bring the tea. Always. She passed away on a Wednesday, 9 days later, quietly, in the morning. The night nurse said she had watched the cardinals until the light got too bright for her eyes, and then she had gone to sleep and not woken up. I got the call at 7:14 a.m. I sat in my kitchen, coffee going cold in front of me, and I let myself cry. Not for long, but fully, because she deserved that. She deserved to be grieved by someone who loved her without complication. And I did. I always had. I took 2 weeks off work, drove back to Ohio, walked into that house on the edge of town for the first time as its owner. The porch wrapped all the way around, just like always. The garden was overgrown but alive. The kitchen smelled like dust and faint sweetness, like something that had been there a long time. I stood in the middle of the kitchen floor for a long time, just stood there. I called Candace. She came over with her mother and 2 casseroles and did not ask any questions. She just helped me open the windows, let the June air move through the rooms, and said, "This house suits you." I think it does too. In the months that followed, I did something I had never allowed myself to do before. I slowed down. I took the inheritance Grandma Ruth had left me, and I did not rush it. I hired someone to fix the porch railing. I replanted the garden. I kept my apartment in Columbus and took the house in Ohio 1 weekend at a time, learning the creaks of it, the way the light came through the front windows in the afternoon, the way the porch felt in the early morning with coffee and nothing to do yet. I had the house properly assessed. With the equity it held in that market, combined with the $41,000, I had more than enough for a real foundation, not a windfall, a foundation, the kind you build a life on. My relationship with my parents is not repaired. I want to be honest about that. My mother and I have spoken twice in 6 months. Short conversations, civil but not warm. She has not apologized, not directly, not for real. My father sent a card at Christmas, signed his name and nothing else. I sent one back. Same. Brianna and I text occasionally. She sold the CRV 8 months later. She needed the money for something else. I did not say anything about the irony of that, but I thought about it. It has been 11 months since Gerald made that phone call, 7 months since I buried my grandmother in the cemetery 2 miles from the house she left me. I visit her grave on Sundays sometimes. I bring sweet tea. I sit on the little bench nearby and I talk to her. I tell her about the garden, about the new porch railing, about the cardinals that have started coming to the feeder I put up outside the kitchen window. 3 of them, every morning, like they followed her home. I am not defined by what my parents did. I refuse to be, because if I let their choices become the headline of my story, then I give them more power than they ever deserved. What I am defined by is simpler. I am a woman who kept showing up, who kept doing the right thing even when the right thing was not rewarded, who had one person in her corner who saw her clearly and who made sure that when it mattered most, that one person was enough. Grandma Ruth used the last of her strength to make one phone call. One. And it changed the entire trajectory of my life. I think about that a lot, about how one person choosing to see you, really see you, can undo years of being overlooked. You don't need a whole room of people in your corner. You need one Ruth. And if you haven't found yours yet, keep going. Keep being dependable. Keep being the one who shows up. Because somewhere, someone is watching. Someone already knows your name, and they are paying attention. If you stayed with me all the way to the end, thank you, from the bottom of my heart. If this story reminded you of someone in your life, a grandmother, an aunt, a teacher, a friend, someone who showed up for you when others looked past you, drop their name in the comments. Let's honor the people who showed up for us. And if you're watching this and you're the Ruth in someone's life right now, please don't wait. Make the call, send the text, say the thing you've been meaning to say. Because time, as Grandma Ruth knew better than anyone, does not wait for the right moment. It just moves. If this story hit close to home, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. For more stories like this, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on our next stories. See you next time.